All right, this is the very first video notes for macroeconomics. This is modules 1 through 4, basic economic concepts, and this is specifically module 1. All right, so to begin with, I do have to give a definition of what economics is, because inevitably I have at least somebody at the end of the semester who gets through the entire semester and right before the final asks, so what is economics? So economics is simply the study of the choices that we make because of scarcity. Because ultimately, remember, we talked about that everything is scarce, everything is in limited supply. We have to make choices. For example, in class, we did that Starburst thing the very first day where you had to come in and you had to pick a Starburst from my basket. But there was a limited amount of Starburst in there as a whole, but there's also even a limited amount of each particular flavor. So because of that, you had to make a choice about what flavor you're going to choose, which one you're going to choose. Now, within that, we can also talk about factors of production. Factors of production are basically the resources that are used to make every product that is out there. So we can break down the factors of production into 4 basic categories. So by now, hopefully you've read Module 1, so you should know those 4 categories. So think about that. What are the 4 factors of production? If you said land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, you would be correct. Now, I know that you're probably thinking, why is she talking about this now? Because I already read about it. However, there are some points that I want to make sure that I instill with you. First of all, land. Land does include the land, literally the land that the building is sitting on, the factory is sitting on, the lovely picture here. But it does also include, for example, solar energy, wind energy that's also included in there. It also includes animals and animal byproducts, as well as anything that can be found in the land. So not the oil derrick there, but the oil that they're drilling for. That's all included in land. I always talk about land as the the God-made items. Okay, so these are all things that God made, with the exception of people, because people are the labor category. So labor is obviously going to be including a lot of different people. So it's going to be the human effort. And so in here we have a variety of people. We could talk about the electrical worker, we could talk about the lawyer, we could talk about the astronaut, the firefighter, the teacher, the doctor, the pilot, whatever. All of them are laborers. That's the human effort. And the third category is capital. So capital is kind of the opposite of the land category. Land is all God-made items. Capital is all man-made items. So this is going to be including, for example, this large piece of machinery, this large harvester here. But it can also include really simple man-made items, such as like a desk chair. Right? It can include lights. It could include my projector, the computer that I'm sitting here working on. Okay, that's all capital. Now, sometimes you'll also hear people talk about financial capital. And when they mean financial capital, what do they mean? Well, financial capital is referring to the cash, the money that is used to be able to run a business. Okay. Now, one of the other things that I don't have a picture of that sometimes is also included is human capital. People talk about human capital, and what they mean by human capital is the knowledge and the skills of the workers. So think about it. Why do you go to college? Well, you probably go to college to be able to get skills to get a job, right? Well, those skills is going to be what you're talking about with human capital. You can even talk about even when you get a job, when you get a brand new job, what's the first thing that they do? They train you, right? So that's the skills and the abilities of the workers. That's human capital. Okay? So land is God-made. Labor is all the human effort. Capital is man-made. So the fourth category is entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs is going to be the category that's most understood. It sounds really simple, but a lot of people misunderstand what it means. Entrepreneurs, if you remember from what your reading was telling you, is that entrepreneurs has to have, it's a person, first of all. I had a lot of people with their homework assignment that was giving me entrepreneurial ideas, but entrepreneurs themselves is a person. Okay, and so entrepreneurs is a person, but they have to have an original idea. They have to have an innovative idea. So just because you're a business owner does not mean that you're automatically an entrepreneur, because you have to have an original idea that separates you from the rest. So for example, you could talk about Steve Jobs, his entrepreneurial idea, his original idea. First, it started off with the iPod. Then you could talk about the iPhone and the iPad, right? These were original, innovative ideas for the time. Did they have touch screens before him? Yes. But it was something that he put a lot of individual pieces together to make a new innovative product. It doesn't have to be huge. You could also talk about this guy. You probably recognize that guy. That guy is Mark Zuckerberg. He's the founder of Facebook. Now, again, was there social media before him? Yes. Okay, there's MySpace. Okay, however, his innovative idea is the simplicity of how he actually put together his social media, what it actually looks like, how it actually functions. That is what is unique and separates him from the rest. Now, obviously, there has been more social media that has developed along the way that has improved upon those ideas. I also have Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is also an entrepreneur in many aspects. Obviously, you started off with her talk show and just the format of her show, the idea of giving away large things at her talk show, but even the idea of, you know, having her own network and the kinds of programming that she actually puts on her own network. Okay, that makes it an entrepreneur. Remember, in order to be an entrepreneur, they have to have an original idea. All right. Then we can talk about economic systems. And economic systems are going to be basically types of economies. This is going to be how an individual country basically decides how they organize and how they decide what's going to be made, how it's going to be made, and for whom it's going to be made. So this is an organized way of actually deciding within your country, what are you going to do? Well, there are basically two types of economic systems. The first type is what we call a market economy. So a market economy is basically when you have individuals making those decisions. Individuals are going to act in their own best interest. So they will go about deciding what they want to make, how they want to make it, and who they're making it for. As well as consumers will decide what do we actually want to buy. So the question is, what's the good side of this? What's the downside of this? So think about it. Good side of everybody having their own free will. Well, you could talk about that there is a lot of innovation. People make a lot of new ideas because there's incentives. If I make a better product than the last guy, I may get more money than him, right? It encourages competition. Okay? It gets a lot of products out there, so consumers have a lot of different choices. Okay? Now, the downside, however, is that there's absolutely no security with a market economy. With a pure market system, there is no government involvement. There's absolutely no safety net. What happens if my business goes under? What if nobody buys my product? Sorry, too bad for you, you're out of business. There's nothing to help you. Okay? There is no guarantees. Now, the other thing with the market economy is there's a huge difference between the very, very rich and the very, very poor, but there's not a whole lot in between. Market economies have good and bad. Now, the flip side of that is what we call a command economy. Okay, so a command economy is when the government makes most decisions. They decide what they're going to make, how they're going to make it, and who they're making it for. Now, again, there's good and bad to both of this. So if you think about it, with the government deciding all those decisions for you, sometimes it's kind of freeing not to have to make those decisions. As well as they will take care of you. Everybody in a command economy will have a job, will have a purpose. The government ensures it. Okay? They will make sure that everyone is covered. Now, the flip side of that is that just because you have a job, you have a purpose, there's no added incentive for working harder. So just because you worked really hard doesn't mean that you're going to get anything extra than somebody else. You get the exact same thing. So there's not a whole lot of innovation. Now, the other part of this is that if you think about it, which economic system would you imagine would be better, would you more likely get education and healthcare? If you said command economy, you would be correct. Because under a command economy, the government will ensure that everyone is educated and everyone has basic health care. Why? Reason being is they operate their entire country as basically one great big business. So what happens is that it's in their best interest to have educated and healthy people because they make for better workers. Whereas in a market economy, it doesn't mean that they don't have education and healthcare. It just means that if you want it, you have to be able to pay for it. So if you don't have the money, too bad for you. I usually give market economies, equate them to economic Darwinism. It's survival of the fittest. Okay? Command economies, on the other hand, you have no free will. If you've ever seen the movie The Hunger Games, okay, the President Snow would be a great example of a command economy. Now, which type of economic system did the United States have? Trick question. We actually have a mixture of both. We have what we call a mixed economy. Okay? A mixed economy will take a little bit of everything. So if you think about it, yes, we do have a market-based economy because individuals get to make choices, but we do have some government involvement. So think about, how does the government get involved in our economy? Well, there's a couple of things that they do. First of all, they go and get involved by providing some safety nets. So for example, if I lose my job through no fault of my own, what do I get? Unemployment. We could also help the poor with, for example, welfare or Social Security, providing health insurance to everybody. Yes, I know it's called Obamacare. That's also how the government gets involved. Public schools, that's another involvement of the government. But all of these show you that basically there's not a right or wrong answer. It's just basically what the personal preference of the people are. Okay? So with a market economy, you have all these options. With a command, you would only have one option. And you'd have that leader that gives you that direction. All right, I'm going to stop here for this video. Please watch the second video for the second half of Module 1 in Basic Economic Topics.